Ladies and gentlemen, our cleaning lady here claims she speaks languages.
CEO Derek Richards's voice boomed through the first-class cabin of United Airways Flight 447. He held the intercom like a weapon, pointing at the black woman in seat 2A. 200 pairs of eyes turned. Should we test if she can even read? His laughter infected the cabin. Phones emerged from pockets, cameras focusing on Maya's face. Someone check if her ticket is real, probably stole it from Lost and Found, Richards continued, basking in the chuckles rippling through the cabin. Maya Chen Williams sat perfectly still, her fingers resting on a document written entirely in Japanese characters. The Patek Philippe on her wrist caught the cabin light for just a moment before disappearing under her cardigan sleeve. Have you ever been turned into entertainment for rich strangers at 35,000 feet? The morning had started differently. Maya had settled into her first-class seat, reviewing acquisition documents when Richards noticed her. In his world, a world of private jets and inherited privilege, black women didn't belong in first class unless they were serving drinks. "Excuse me, miss," he'd said loudly, ensuring other passengers heard. "The help usually boards through the back." When Maya had quietly corrected him, mentioning she spoke several languages, Richard saw an opportunity for entertainment. These real-life stories always played well with his audience of investors and sycophants. Now, 30 minutes later, he stood in the aisle, waving a thick document above his head. "I have here a 50-page merger and acquisition proposal in Japanese, critical to my meeting in Tokyo." He slapped it on Maya's tray table. "You claim you speak languages? Translate this in 30 minutes. The cabin grew quiet. A woman in 3B whispered, "This is cruel." But her phone remained raised, live-streaming every second. "Here's the deal," Richards announced, his Yale-class ring catching the light as he gestured. "Succeed, and I'll give you a year of free flights. Fail." He paused for effect. "You clean all our first-class lounges for a month. Unpaid." Maya's fingers traced the document's edge. Her eyes paused at the header. "Hostile takeover proposal. United Airways acquisition." "Don't worry, folks," Richards continued, playing to his audience. "When she fails, at least she'll have steady work." The laughter that followed felt like physical blows. These weren't just black stories of discrimination anymore. This was her story, happening in real time, with 200 witnesses. Flight attendant Jessica Martinez stepped forward. "Mr. Richards, perhaps you'd like to join her in the cleaning crew?" His voice turned ice cold. "Know your place, Jessica." Maya looked up then, meeting his eyes for the first time. Something flickered across her face. Not fear, not anger, but something Richards couldn't quite place. She pulled out a Mont Blanc pen from her bag, uncapped it with deliberate slowness, and began to write. Her handwriting was elegant, precise. The Japanese businessman in 4A leaned forward, his eyes widening as he read over her shoulder. Richards's phone buzzed, a text from his CFO. "Urgent, anonymous buyer activity detected in pre-market trading." He ignored it. The show was too good to interrupt. "Get your phones ready, this'll be hilarious," Richards encouraged the crowd, his voice dripping with anticipation. The first-class cabin transformed into an amphitheater of cruelty. Phones rose like salutes, each passenger eager to capture what they assumed would be Maya's humiliation. The hashtag #Translate Challenge started trending within minutes. "Oh my God, Derek's destroying her," giggled a blonde woman in designer sunglasses, zooming in on Maya's face. "This is better than reality TV." But not everyone was laughing. An elderly black man in 5C gripped his armrest, his jaw clenched. He'd seen this before. Different decade, same humiliation. These weren't just touching stories anymore. They were wounds being reopened. 25 minutes remaining, Richards announced, starting a timer on the cabin's main screen. The red numbers glowed, 2500, 2459, 2458. Maya's pen moved steadily across the page. No trembling, no hesitation. The Japanese businessman in 4A, Mr. Takeshi, leaned closer. His expression shifted from curiosity to amazement. "Sugoi," he whispered. "Your kanji is perfect. Better than—" "No helping," Richards snapped. "She does this alone, or she fails." A young black woman in 7B started her own live stream. "Y'all seeing this? They're really doing this to her in 2025. This is exactly why we need to document these life stories. Nobody would believe it otherwise." The cabin divided into factions. Some passengers laughed and placed bets on how quickly Maya would give up. Others watched in uncomfortable silence, complicit in their inaction. Flight attendant Jessica tried again. "Sir, this is inappropriate. We should—" "We should what, Jessica? Let me remind you that my family owns 47% of this airline. You work for me." Maya's pen stopped. She looked up at those words, 47%, and a small smile played at her lips. She glanced at her phone, checking something quickly, then returned to translating. "She's cheating," someone called out. "She's using her phone." Maya held up her phone, showing the screen to the crowd. It displayed a stock ticker, UAW trading at 47.83, with unusual volume spikes. "Just checking the time," she said, her first words since the challenge began. Her voice was calm, controlled, with a hint of something Richards couldn't identify. Amusement? Confidence? She returned to writing, her pen flowing across the page as the timer ticked down. 20th, 1959, 1958. The crowd held its collective breath, waiting for her to crack. 20 minutes until we see if she's all talk, Richards proclaimed, strutting down the aisle like a prize fighter who'd already won. The timer dominated everyone's attention now. Its red glow reflected off champagne glasses and Rolex watches, turning the first-class cabin into a countdown chamber. These real-life stories of discrimination usually happened in shadows, but here, under the harsh cabin lights, everything was exposed. Maya had completed 10 pages. Her handwriting remained steady, each character precisely formed. But it was her speed that unsettled observers. She wasn't struggling or searching for words. She was translating as naturally as breathing. Mr. Takeshi couldn't help himself. He snapped a photo of her work and sent it to his colleague in Tokyo. The response came immediately. "Who is this translator? This is doctorate-level work." 15 minutes, Richards announced unnecessarily. Everyone could see the timer. Maya paused at page 23. Her eyes lingered on a particular section. The acquiring party, hereafter referred to as anonymous buyer, currently controls 47.3% of outstanding shares through 12 shell companies. She smiled again, that same enigmatic expression that made Richards's stomach tighten inexplicably. Her phone buzzed. Without looking at it, she silenced it and continued writing. "She's too calm," whispered a passenger in 8A. "Nobody's that calm unless—" "Unless what?" his companion asked. "Unless they know something we don't." The black stories shared on social media usually ended in defeat or Pyrrhic victory. But something about Maya's composure suggested a different ending was being written in real time. Richards's phone rang. His CFO again. He declined the call, but a text followed immediately. "Urgent. We've identified unusual options activity. Someone's about to make a major play. Call me now." He ignored it. In 10 minutes, he'd have his entertainment and a viral video to share at the Tokyo meeting. The Japanese loved these touching stories of American resilience, or in this case, American failure. 10 minutes! The cabin erupted in excitement. Maya set down her pen, stretched her fingers, and then did something unexpected. She pulled out a second document from her bag, this one in Mandarin Chinese. "Mr. Richards," she said, her voice carrying perfectly through the hushed cabin. "I've finished the Japanese translation. Would you like me to translate this one too? Same terms?" The crowd gasped. Several passengers lowered their phones in shock. Richards' face flushed red. She was mocking him. She had to be. Listen, I need to pause this story for just a moment because what happens next will blow your mind. But first, if this is making your blood boil, you're not alone. I receive hundreds of messages daily from people sharing similar experiences. Did you know that 67% of Black professionals report being underestimated daily in their workplaces? This isn't just about one woman on one plane. This is about every time someone assumed you couldn't afford to shop there, couldn't possibly live in that neighborhood, couldn't have earned that degree. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell right now. We expose these moments that need to be seen. And drop A in the comments if you think Maya's about to shock everyone. Trust me, you don't want to miss what she does next. Now let's get back to that first-class cabin where Maya just made a move nobody saw coming. The cabin fell silent as Maya picked up her pen again. 10 minutes remained on the clock, yet she'd completed the entire Japanese document. Now she was starting on something else, something nobody had asked for. "What are you doing?" Richards demanded, his confidence cracking slightly. "Providing annotations," Maya replied without looking up. "Your Japanese document contains 3 critical errors that would void the contract under Tokyo commercial law. I'm correcting them." Mr. Takeshi stood up, unable to contain himself. "Kanpeki!" he exclaimed. "This is perfect! Better than perfect! She's found issues our lawyers missed. She must be using Google Translate on her phone. Check her pockets," Richards barked at Jessica. The flight attendant didn't move. "Sir, I'm not searching a passenger." Maya held up both hands, showing empty palms, then returned to writing. Her annotations were detailed, citing specific articles of Japanese commercial code. Several passengers who worked in international business leaned in, recognizing the expertise on display. These weren't just Black stories of overcoming anymore. This was mastery being revealed in real time. The touching stories people usually shared involved small victories. This was shaping up to be something else entirely. 5 minutes, Richards announced, but his voice had lost its earlier bravado. Maya finished the annotations and looked up. "Mr. Richards, I notice this acquisition proposal involves United Airways. Interesting reading. The anonymous buyer seems very well informed about your company's vulnerabilities." Richards snatched the papers from her tray table, his eyes scanning frantically. How had she translated so fast? How had she found errors his $2,000 per hour lawyers had missed? His phone rang again. This time he answered. "Derek, we have a problem." His CFO's voice was panicked. "The anonymous buyer just acquired another 4% in pre-market trading. If they get to 51%, not now!" Richards ended the call, but his hand was shaking. Maya capped her pen with deliberate precision. "Time remaining?" 3 minutes, someone called out. "Perfect." She pulled out the Mandarin document she'd mentioned earlier. "Mr. Richards, shall we make this interesting? This document, 30 pages of simplified Chinese. If I can translate the executive summary in the remaining 3 minutes, you triple the bet. If I fail, I'll not only clean your lounges, I'll do it wearing a uniform with "I failed" printed on it." The crowd gasped. Several people started new live streams. Ta. TranslateGate began trending. Richards looked at the timer. 2:47, 2:46, 2:45. His pride wouldn't let him back down. Not with everyone watching, not with the cameras rolling. "Deal," he said. Maya smiled and began to write. "Fine, but if you fail with the Chinese document, you're not just cleaning, you're on our no-fly list, permanently." The cabin erupted. This had escalated from cruel entertainment to potential life destruction. These real-life stories of discrimination rarely showed the full weight of power being wielded against ordinary people. "That's illegal," Jessica protested. "That's business," Richards corrected. She accepted the challenge. Maya looked at the Mandarin document, then at Richards. "I need one thing clarified. When I succeed, and I will, what exactly do I win?" 3 years of first-class flights, Richards said dismissively. No. Maya's voice cut through the cabin like steel. You said triple the bet. 3 years of first-class flights, plus a written apology to every passenger on this plane for wasting their time with your prejudice, plus a $50,000 donation to the United Negro College Fund. The crowd murmured. Someone whispered, "She's negotiating while the clock's running?" Richards laughed, but it sounded forced. You're hardly in a position to— 2 minutes, 15 seconds remaining, Maya interrupted. Do we have a deal? Or should I stop translating and let everyone know that Derek Richards, CEO of United Airways, backs down from challenges he initiates? Several passengers had started streaming on multiple platforms. #TranslateGate was trending worldwide now. Comments poured in. She's got him. This is insane. Please tell me someone's recording this. These weren't just black stories anymore. This was David versus Goliath at 35,000 feet, and David was wearing designer glasses and speaking in multiple languages. Richards's face turned purple. Deal. But when you fail. Maya was already writing. Her pen flew across the page, Chinese characters flowing in perfect columns. But she wasn't just translating. She was also speaking, providing verbal translation simultaneously. Executive summary. The acquiring entity, through strategic positioning across 12 shell companies incorporated in Delaware, Hong Kong, and Singapore, has accumulated 47.3% of United Airways common stock. Richards's blood ran cold. Those numbers, 47.3%, exactly matched what his CFO had been trying to tell him. 1 minute, someone shouted. Maya continued, her voice steady. The final phase of acquisition requires only 3.7% additional shares, which market analysis suggests can be obtained within 6 trading hours of announcement. She set down her pen with 30 seconds to spare, sliding the translated summary across to Richards. Done, she said simply. Then, looking directly at him, By the way, Mr. Richards, you might want to check your phone. Your CFO seems quite urgent to reach you. Richards's phone was buzzing continuously now, like an angry wasp trapped in his pocket. Maya pulled out her phone, a latest model iPhone in a custom Hermes case that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She dialed a number from memory and waited. She's calling for help! Typical! Richards sneered, though his voice wavered. But Maya wasn't speaking English. The liquid tones of Cantonese flowed from her lips, rapid and authoritative. Several Hong Kong businessmen in the cabin straightened in their seats, their faces paling. She just said, "Execute Protocol 7 at market open," one translated in hushed tones. Something about releasing the press statement to Bloomberg and Reuters simultaneously. These life stories, these moments when power shifts in real time, rarely had so many witnesses. Every phone in first class was recording, streaming, sharing. The touching stories people would tell later wouldn't capture the electricity in the air, the sense that something monumental was happening. Maya ended the call and returned to the Chinese document, translating the remaining pages with impossible speed and accuracy. Her pen never hesitated, never paused to think. It was as if she'd written these documents herself. Richards's phone exploded with notifications. His CFO, his board members, his legal team, everyone was trying to reach him simultaneously. He finally answered, turning away from the crowd. "Derek, for God's sake!" his CFO screamed. "The anonymous buyer just filed Schedule 13D with the SEC. They're making their move. They own 51.2% as of market open. We're being taken over." Richards dropped his phone. It clattered on the cabin floor, his CFO's voice still audible. Derek, the buyer, it's Lotus Capital. The CEO is someone named M. Chen Williams." Every head in the cabin turned to Maya, who was calmly finishing the last page of translation. She looked up, checking the timer. 8 minutes remaining from the original 30. "Completed with time to spare," she announced. "Mr. Takeshi, would you mind verifying the accuracy of my Japanese translation? Mr. Wong, perhaps you could check the Mandarin?" Both men eagerly accepted the documents. As they read, their expressions shifted from skepticism to amazement to something approaching fear. "This is perfect," Mr. Takeshi whispered. "But more than that, these margin notes show understanding of international M&A law that... Who are you?" Maya stood slowly, deliberately. She removed her cardigan, revealing a tailored Armani suit beneath. The Patek Philippe on her wrist, worth more than most people's houses, gleamed under the cabin lights. "Mr. Richards," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the first-class cabin, "I believe you owe me an apology and a donation. But first, you might want to sit down. We need to discuss your future employment." "This translation just saved your company $200 million, Mr. Richards." The Japanese lawyer's words hung in the air like a verdict. He held up Maya's annotated translation, pointing to specific sections. These errors in the original would have triggered penalty clauses. She caught them all. Richard stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly. The real-life stories he'd heard about hostile takeovers had always happened to other people, other companies. Not to him, not to United Airways, his family's legacy. "But that's not the most interesting part," Maya said, standing now at her full height. She moved with the confidence of someone who'd already won. "Look at the signature line on your original Japanese document." Richards fumbled with the papers, his hands shaking. There, at the bottom of the acquisition proposal, was a signature in both Japanese characters and English. M. Chen Williams, CEO, Lotus Capital. "You," he stammered. "I signed that document 6 months ago," Maya continued, her voice calm as still water. "When I first began acquiring shares in your company. You've been so busy making your employees' lives miserable, you never noticed your empire crumbling." The cabin had gone completely silent. 200 passengers held their breath, their phones capturing every second. These weren't just black stories of discrimination anymore. This was justice being served at cruising altitude. "The Chinese document you asked me to translate?" Maya picked up the pages she'd just completed. "That's my offer to buy your remaining shares, the one your board will be voting on," she checked her Patek Philippe, "in approximately 2 hours." A passenger in 10B gasped. "Oh my God, she's been playing him this entire time!" The flight attendant, Jessica, couldn't suppress a smile. Other United Airways employees throughout the cabin began to realize what was happening. Their tyrant CEO was being dethroned. But you're... Richards couldn't finish the sentence. "Black? A woman? Someone you assumed was the help?" Maya's voice remained controlled, but there was steel beneath the silk. "Yes, all of those things. And also your new boss." She pulled out her phone again, showing the screen to the cabin. The Bloomberg app displayed breaking news. "Lotus Capital completes hostile takeover of United Airways. First black woman to own major U.S. airline." The timestamp showed the news had broken 60 seconds ago. Richards's legs gave out. He collapsed into an empty seat, his face the color of ash. Around him, passengers erupted, some cheering, others in shock, all recording this moment that would become legendary in corporate history. "Allow me to properly introduce myself." Maya's voice commanded absolute attention. "I'm Maya Chen Williams, CEO and founder of Lotus Capital. I hold doctorates in international business from Wharton and comparative linguistics from Harvard. I speak 8 languages fluently, including the 3 you just tested me on." She paused, letting each word sink in. "For the past 18 months, I've been systematically acquiring shares in United Airways through 12 shell companies. As of..." She glanced at her phone. 47 seconds ago, Lotus Capital officially owns 51.2% of this airline." The cabin exploded. Passengers gasped, shouted, some even applauded. Flight attendants covered their mouths in shock. These real-life stories of reversals rarely happened so publicly, so completely. But you're..." Richards was still struggling to form words. "Your boss?" "Yes, Mr. Richards. Effective immediately." She turned to address the cabin, every phone tracking her movement. "Ladies and gentlemen, You've just witnessed something I've been planning for over a year. You see, Mr. Richards has a pattern. He's humiliated 7 employees in similar fashion over the past 2 years. 3 filed lawsuits that were quietly settled. 4 quit. Maya pulled out an iPad, swiping through documents. I have here sworn affidavits from each of them. Jessica, would you mind reading this one? The flight attendant took the iPad with trembling hands and read, On March 15th, Mr. Richards made me, a black engineer with MIT credentials, solve calculus problems on a napkin to prove I wasn't a diversity hire. When I succeeded, he said it must have been luck. These weren't just touching stories anymore. They were evidence. A pattern of discrimination that had finally met its match. I purchased every first-class seat on this flight, Maya continued. I knew Mr. Richards would be here, heading to Tokyo for what he thought would be his triumph, a merger with Yamamoto Industries. What he didn't know was that Yamamoto is my partner in this takeover. Mr. Takeshi stood up. I'm actually Takeshi Yamamoto, Executive Vice President. We've been documenting Mr. Richards' behavior for months. This translation test? We suggested it to him yesterday, knowing his ego wouldn't resist. The crowd was in uproar. #TranslateGate had evolved into #TakeoverGate. News outlets worldwide were picking up the story. CNN's breaking news banner read, Unprecedented. CEO discovers hostile takeover while humiliating new owner. Every person on this plane is either a Lotus Capital employee, a journalist, or an invited witness, Maya revealed. You thought you were entertaining strangers, Mr. Richards. You were actually performing for my board of directors, my legal team, and reporters from the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, and Reuters. A woman in 15A raised her press badge. Sarah Chen, Wall Street Journal. Ms. Chen Williams, can you confirm this was all orchestrated? Every detail, Maya confirmed. From my seat assignment to the specific documents Mr. Richards would use. We even knew he'd escalate the bet. His psychological profile indicated a 94% probability. Richards found his voice, though it cracked. This is entrapment. This is capitalism, Maya interrupted. The same system you've used to crush others for decades. The difference is I did it legally, ethically, and with documentation of every second. She held up her phone, showing a live stream viewer count, 2.7 million and climbing. The world is watching, Mr. Richards. They saw you discriminate against someone based solely on race and perceived class. They saw you threaten employees. They saw you abuse power you inherited but never earned. The Patek Philippe on her wrist caught the light as she gestured, $500,000 worth of Swiss precision timing this moment perfectly. But they also saw something else, Maya continued, her voice rising slightly for the first time. They saw that bullies can be beaten. That discrimination has consequences. That sometimes, just sometimes, the person you step on is the one holding the ladder. Hold on. I have to interrupt again because what Maya's about to do next changes everything. She's not just taking over an airline, she's about to transform an entire industry. But real quick, if you've ever dreamed of seeing a bully get exactly what they deserve, you need to share this right now. Send it to that friend who's been discriminated against at work. Send it to that family member who says racism doesn't exist anymore. This is proof, captured in 4K by 200 witnesses. Comment below. What would you do with 51% of an airline? Would you fire him immediately? Make him clean the planes? I'm reading every single comment after we finish this story. And please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're building a community that celebrates these moments of justice. Now, let's see what Maya does with her newfound power. Maya pulled out a satellite phone and placed it on speaker. Within seconds, 12 faces appeared on the cabin's entertainment screens. The board of directors of United Airways hastily assembled for an emergency meeting. Good morning, board members, Maya said calmly. I'm Maya Chen Williams, your new majority shareholder. We're conducting this meeting from Flight 447, with 200 witnesses including representatives from major media outlets. The board members looked confused, panicked. One elderly man stammered, "This is highly irregular." "What's irregular, Mr. Thompson, is your CEO using company time and resources to humiliate passengers based on race. Everything that's happened in the last 30 minutes has been live-streamed to millions." She pulled up financial documents on her iPad, mirroring them to the screens. "Let me share some data. Under Mr. Richards' leadership, United Airways has paid out $47 million in discrimination settlements over 5 years. Your employee turnover among minorities is 340% higher than industry average. Your customer satisfaction scores among black passengers are the lowest in the industry." These weren't just black stories of struggle anymore. These were metrics of systematic failure. The touching stories of individual discrimination had metastasized into corporate cancer. "Furthermore," Maya continued, "I've been tracking this flight for 18 months. I knew Mr. Richards would be here. I bought every first-class seat. That's $347,000 of my own money to ensure witnesses." A board member interrupted. "You can't seriously expect us to—" "I expect you to read Clause 47B of your corporate charter," Maya cut him off. "Moral turpitude clause. Any executive who brings significant reputational damage to the company can be removed with a simple majority vote. I control 51.2%, but I'm offering you a chance to be on the right side of history." She turned to Richards, who sat slumped in his seat. "Mr. Richards, you have two options. Resign immediately with 6 months severance, or be terminated for cause with nothing. You have 60 seconds to decide." "Please, Ms. Williams," Richards's voice broke. "My family built this airline. My grandfather—" "Your grandfather built this company on the backs of workers he underpaid and discriminated against," Maya interrupted. "I've read the historical records. The apple didn't fall far from the tree." She showed another document. "This Mandarin contract you mocked? It's my formal offer to buy your remaining shares at market price. Sign it now, or I'll withdraw the offer and let the market decide your shares' value after this video goes viral." The cabin was silent, except for the hum of engines. 200 phones captured Richards's humiliation, the same humiliation he'd inflicted on countless others. 30 seconds, Maya announced. Richards's hands shook as he reached for the contract. His signature was barely legible. "Wise choice," Maya said. She turned back to the board on screen. "Motion to remove Derek Richards as CEO effective immediately. All in favor?" 12 hands rose on screen, unanimous. The cabin erupted in applause. Flight attendants hugged. Passengers cheered. Justice had been served at 35,000 feet. "Now let's discuss consequences." Maya's voice cut through the celebration like a blade. The cabin fell silent again. She pulled up a presentation on the screens, prepared months in advance, waiting for this moment. "Mr. Richards, your discrimination triggered several legal provisions. First, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission violations, 7 counts. Second, breach of fiduciary duty by exposing the company to reputational damage. Third, violation of your own employment contract's dignity and respect clause." Richards's lawyer, watching via live stream from New York, texted frantically, "Don't say anything else!" But Maya wasn't finished. "The 200 witnesses here can testify to what they saw. The millions watching online have recorded evidence. You asked me to translate documents, Mr. Richards. Let me translate your situation. You're finished." These real-life stories of justice rarely came with such thorough preparation. Every detail had been orchestrated, every consequence calculated. "However," Maya continued, "I'm not you. I won't destroy you for entertainment. Here are my terms. You'll receive 6 months severance, $2.3 million. In exchange, you'll sign this non-disclosure agreement and this commitment to complete 200 hours of diversity training." She paused, then delivered the killing blow. "By the way, that Mandarin contract you mocked? It was my offer to buy your shares. You just helped translate your own termination. Your signature on that translation validates the Chinese version as legally binding." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The crowd murmured in amazement. Someone whispered, "She played him like a violin." Additionally, Maya announced, "You'll personally apologize to every employee you've discriminated against, starting with Jessica." She handed the microphone to the flight attendant. Jessica's voice shook with years of suppressed anger. "Mr. Richards, you've made my life hell for 3 years, called me diversity hire, questioned my competence, threatened my job when I stood up for passengers. Your apology means nothing, but your removal means everything." Richards mumbled something inaudible. "Louder," Maya commanded. "These people deserve to hear you." I apologize," Richards said, his voice breaking. "I was wrong." "To whom?" Maya pressed. "To Jessica. To you. To everyone." Maya took back the microphone. "Board members, I'm appointing Jessica Martinez as interim VP of Customer Experience, effective immediately. Her first task will be implementing mandatory anti-discrimination training for all executives." The board members on screen nodded quickly, eager to avoid Maya's crosshairs. "One more thing," Maya added. "Mr. Richards, you're banned from all United Airways flights for 5 years, not because you're black, you're not, but because you're a liability. How does it feel to be judged by your character instead of your skin color?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. These weren't just touching stories anymore. This was a reckoning, broadcast live to the world. Richards stood to leave, but Maya's voice stopped him. "Security will escort you to economy, middle seat, next to the lavatory. Enjoy the remaining 4 hours to Tokyo." 2 security officers appeared. Maya had positioned them in the galley, waiting. They flanked Richards as he stood, his legs unsteady. The walk from first class to economy had never seemed longer. Every phone tracked his journey. The hashtag #Walk of Shame joined #TranslateGate at the top of trending topics. These real-life stories of comeuppance rarely had such perfect cinematography. 200 amateur filmmakers capturing every angle. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maya announced over the intercom, "you've just witnessed justice. But justice without reform is just revenge. So here's what happens next." She pulled up a new presentation. "Every passenger on this flight receives complimentary first-class travel for 1 year. Not as a bribe for your silence. You're free to share everything, but as an apology for United Airways' past discrimination." The cabin erupted in amazement. That represented millions in lost revenue, but Maya wasn't finished. "Jessica Martinez is promoted to VP of Customer Experience with a 300% salary increase, retroactive 2 years to compensate for suppressed wages. Every employee who filed a discrimination complaint against Mr. Richards receives similar compensation." Jessica collapsed into a seat, tears streaming down her face. Other United employees throughout the cabin began crying too, vindication after years of abuse. "Furthermore," Maya continued, "I'm establishing the Maya Chen Williams Foundation with $50 million of my personal funds. It will provide scholarships for Black students studying languages, international business, and aviation management." A young Black woman in 7B shouted, "Yes, that's how you do it." The touching stories people would tell about this day wouldn't capture the full electricity of the moment, the sense that a fundamental power shift had occurred. Maya turned to the cameras still rolling. "To everyone watching, this is what preparation looks like. This is what patience looks like. This is what justice looks like. Mr. Richards thought my skin color made me inferior. He thought my gender made me weak. He thought his inherited wealth made him untouchable." She paused, letting the moment build. "He thought wrong." The applause was deafening. Passengers stood, clapping until their hands hurt. Flight attendants embraced. Even the pilots came out to witness history. Through the economy cabin curtain, they could see Richards squeezed into middle seat 47B, between a crying baby and a man eating a tuna sandwich. His phone buzzed constantly. Reporters, board members, his family. But he didn't answer. Couldn't answer. The empire built on discrimination had fallen in 30 minutes. The woman he'd tried to humiliate owned his company, his legacy, his future. And the whole world had watched it happen. Maya wasn't done. She pulled up her phone and initiated a company-wide video call. Within seconds, thousands of United Airways employees worldwide were watching. Effective immediately, United Airways implements the following changes. First, the Maya Protocol. Any employee experiencing discrimination can trigger an immediate investigation through a new app. Anonymous reporting, third-party investigation, results within 72 hours. She demonstrated the app on her phone. Simple interface, multiple languages, direct line to an independent oversight board. Second, partnership with 10 historically black colleges and universities for our management training program. Full scholarships, guaranteed employment, and mentorship from senior executives, myself included. The real-life stories of corporate change rarely happened this fast, this decisively. But Maya had been planning every detail for 18 months. Third, salary audit across all positions. Any pay gaps based on race or gender will be corrected within 30 days, with back pay calculated over 5 years. This will cost approximately $180 million. Consider it an investment in justice. Board members on screen winced at the number but didn't dare object. They'd seen what happened to those who opposed Maya Chen Williams. Fourth, Mr. Richards's former office becomes the Diversity and Inclusion Center. His $15 million renovation budget is redirected to employee development programs focusing on minorities and women. A notification popped up on her phone. She smiled. Perfect timing. The Securities and Exchange Commission just approved our filing. Lotus Capital's takeover is official, which means these aren't proposals, they're orders. She turned to Jessica. Your first assignment as VP, interview every employee Richards ever interacted with. Anyone he discriminated against gets priority for promotion. Anyone who enabled him gets retrained or removed. These weren't just black stories of survival anymore. This was transformation at the systemic level. The touching stories of individual triumph had evolved into institutional change. One more thing, Maya announced. I'm donating my entire first year's CEO salary, $12 million, to create free language learning centers in underserved communities. Because languages are power, and power should be accessible to everyone. The cabin screens showed United's stock price. Instead of crashing, it was soaring. Investors recognized that competent ethical leadership had finally arrived. 6 months later, the impact was undeniable. CNN ran a special segment, the Translate Gate Effect. 8 major airlines had implemented their own versions of the Maya Protocol. Discrimination complaints dropped 73% industry-wide, not because discrimination ended, but because it now had immediate consequences. Jessica Martinez had become the youngest black female pilot in United's history, while maintaining her VP role. Maya didn't just change my life, she told Anderson Cooper. She changed what's possible. The real-life stories emerging from United Airways were different now. Employees spoke of respect, opportunity, advancement based on merit rather than melanin. Derek Richards? He taught business ethics at a community college in Newark. His students didn't know his history until one Googled him mid-semester. The viral video of his humiliation had 847 million views. He'd become a cautionary tale, a meme, a verb. To get Richards meant to be exposed as a bigot in spectacular fashion. But Maya's true legacy was the Chen Williams Language Centers. 50 locations in 6 months, teaching Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, and coding to over 100,000 students. Free. No income requirements, no applications, no barriers. Languages aren't just words, Maya said at the ribbon cutting in Jackson, Mississippi, her hometown. They're bridges, they're weapons, they're wings. The touching stories from these centers were overwhelming. Kids from housing projects learning Japanese and landing internships in Tokyo. Former inmates mastering Portuguese and starting import businesses. Single mothers learning Python and tripling their income. Every center had the same plaque at the entrance. They underestimate you at their own risk. The Yamamoto partnership had transformed United into the most profitable airline in America. Customer satisfaction among black passengers rose from last to first. Employee retention hit record highs. But the numbers that mattered most to Maya were different. 50,000 scholarships awarded, 200,000 discrimination reports resolved, 1 million people learning new languages. She'd proven something fundamental. When you give marginalized people power, they don't seek revenge. They seek reform. They don't destroy systems. They fix them. The boy who'd called her the N-word in 3rd grade, who'd said she'd never amount to anything, he'd applied for a job at United. She hired him, then enrolled him in sensitivity training. The ripples spread beyond America's borders. The European Union launched an investigation into discrimination practices across all airlines. The Maya Standard, they called it. Zero tolerance, immediate consequences, transparent reporting. These black stories of triumph had become global policy templates. BBC News ran the headline, "One woman, 8 languages, and 30 minutes that changed corporate history forever." Maya refused 100 interview requests from 60 Minutes, Oprah, Trevor Noah. She posted once on Twitter, "Respect is non-negotiable." It became the most retweeted post of 2025, 2.7 million shares and counting. Harvard Business School made TranslateGate a mandatory case study. Professor Williams, no relation, told his students, this wasn't just about justice. It was about preparation, meeting opportunity, multiplied by audacity. The touching stories kept emerging. A United janitor promoted to regional manager after reporting discrimination. He'd been hiding his MBA for years, afraid of being uppity. A black female engineer finally getting the projects she deserved, designing United's next generation of fuel-efficient engines. But the most powerful moment came at the United Nations. Maya was invited to speak about corporate discrimination. She brought props. The original Japanese document Richards had thrust at her, her handwritten translation, and his resignation letter. These 3 pieces of paper represent past, present, and future, she told the assembly. The past where discrimination was entertainment, the present where it has consequences, and the future where it doesn't exist. She held up the resignation letter. Mr. Richards wrote, "I never saw you coming. That's the point. Prejudice blinds you to potential. Discrimination makes you vulnerable to those you dismiss." The General Assembly gave her a standing ovation. 193 nations acknowledging that one woman's stand at 35,000 feet had changed ground-level reality for millions. The real-life stories inspired by Maya weren't about revenge. They were about readiness. About being so prepared that when someone tried to humiliate you, you could buy their company instead. Your intelligence isn't determined by your skin color. Your worth isn't defined by others' prejudice. Maya didn't just translate languages. She translated power. Every day, people face discrimination in offices, stores, airports. They're told they don't belong, can't achieve, shouldn't dream. Maya's story proves them wrong. If you've faced discrimination, comment your story below. Let's make it visible. Share this video with someone who needs to see that justice is possible. These real-life stories matter because they show that change isn't just possible. It's inevitable when we prepare, persist, and refuse to accept less than respect. Subscribe and hit this bell because we'll keep exposing these moments until respect becomes universal. These black stories, these touching stories of triumph over prejudice, they're not just stories, they're blueprints for revolution. Remember, they underestimate you at their own risk. And sometimes, the person they step on owns the ladder.